Whilst these normative instruments exist at continental and regional levels, adherence to these frameworks remains a challenge. It is in this light that Democracy Works Foundation created this unique knowledge-sharing platform, which brought together civil society, political actors, the African Union, and AGA members.
We've brought together political parties, civil society, members of the African governance architecture to come together first and foremost to really reflect on the important role of regional economic communities.
As African, you are the African Union, and all of us in this room are Africans, and if you are not an African, you are an African friend. So therefore, we all, in fact, African or the African Union.
As we all know, after the transformation of the Continental Organization from the Organization of African Unity to the African Union, the continent agreed that the transformation will be based on a new mandate. That mandate is to build the Africa that is united, prosperous and peaceful, based on African shared values and democracy and good governance.
The Charter Project Africa is supported by the European Union, and it's built as a Pan-African project that seeks to leverage the use of civic technology and digital engagement to enhance citizens' role in pursuing accountable governance.
I am one of the key architects of this charter we are going to interrogate. It has 6 substantive sections. And these are: 1, democracy, rule of law and human rights; 2, the culture of democracy and peace; 3, democratic institutions; 4, democratic elections; 5, sanctions in cases of unconstitutional change of government; 6, and finally, political, economic and social governance. These are the key thematic areas of the charter. And you can tell it is very broad, as it were. If governments can deliver services to combat poverty, hunger, unemployment, inequality, that will make a huge difference. And democracy will get a different shape, and people will have more faith, not only in elections, but they will also, the trust, the public trust in democratic institutions will be further enhanced.
So the AU ECOSOC is an organ on the African Union structure. And as you can see there, with the African Union structure, we have the General Assembly, we have the Executive Council, and then we have the specialized technical committees together with the permanent representatives committees. The ECOSOC is constituted by Articles 5 and 22 of the AU Constitution. And it's essentially an advisory organ on policy development that ensures that the African citizens are represented in the decisions that are made. It does so by regulating, or rather not regulating, facilitating engagement between the African civil society with the African Union on different levels. So this is all to drive towards the shared vision, the shared Pan-African vision as enshrined in Agenda 2063 of an independent, prosperous, and peaceful Africa.
There is a mandate. The SADC does have a very clear mandate on governance, political governance, and issues of democracy and human rights, etc. And in particular, that mandate comes from the treaty, initially from the treaty. And when you look at Article 4 of the treaty, and Article 4 focuses on the principles, and it says SADC and its member states shall act in accordance with the following principles. Amongst those principles is the principle of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law.
So there is a common denominator to most of these initiatives that we are about to present, which is indeed the ACTEC advocacy. So although this initiative had the same goal, they've been implemented in different contexts, so the response from stakeholders was indeed quite different. So we are gonna actually discuss some important thematic topics with some organizations that indeed are active at grassroots level.
I wanted to just speak briefly to what we do as an organization. We focus mostly on civic education around issues of constitution literacy. And we do this because we believe that it is when citizens are informed, that they can become effective agents, or rather change agents in their communities. Our initiative was titled Ratify the Charter Campaign, primarily because we have not ratified, so we're just doing activities to encourage the government of Botswana to ratify the charter, and we did that through targeting some of the institutions that we thought had the capacity to effectively influence the process of ratification. Thank you very much.
I'm here also to respond to Giovanna's questions about how our organization was doing to make sure that at least our government is accepting to sign and ratify the charter. So, as we all know, or some of us know, that Tanzania is one of the African countries which does not sign and ratify the charter. And I think there might be some reason, maybe, which led our country not to agree with this charter. And I think one of the reasons, it seems like this charter, it's against with our internal laws and policies. Within this charter, there are other things which are very important, especially to young people. So as an organization, we had decided to come up with an initiative to make sure that at least our government is going to sign and ratify this charter, regardless with the other issues. Thank you very much.
What can political parties or policymakers do to improve the ACTEC understanding among youth and citizens?
We implemented a 12-month project of Popularization African Charter on democracy, elections, and governance in the following districts of Eastern rural Zambia, popularly known as Eastern Province. Then we also did radio programs to cater for those with no access to digital platforms and those that have challenges with technology. We also did some focus group discussions to obtain feedback on the project impact. We also did community sensation using role plays and drama. Orientation of 35 youths as change agents in popularization of African Charter on democracy, elections, and governance. We want to remind DWF leadership and the donor communities present here that Zambia has 10 provinces and 116 districts. What we did was developmental and viable, and we appreciate it, but it was on a scratch on a massive problem that we have on the population of African Charter on democracy and election. My name is Goodwin Banda, Lobby and Advocacy Youth Program Director. Zikomo, Natotera Sana, thank you very much. Naunga Chomen.
So the Clicking Generation is an ICT academy. We do all things tech. We do training, we do advocacy. We also are moving into consultancy now in order just to make sure that this 21st century solutions are relevant to our communities. For the longest time, we've been doing work in our communities, training children, cybersecurity, corporates, and this was an opportunity for us now to give back to the political landscape in terms of tech and available tools and resources. So the project that we had was called Social Media for Campaigns for Political Women Aspirants. and anybody who really wants to add their voice to politics. So the selection of participation was really open for all. In our group, we've had nominations from political parties, women wings. We also had applications that came in from people who were not quite sure where they wanted to fall, and somebody who says, I am part of a campaign and I want to be empowered in the skills of using social media. But just to appreciate DWF for the support that they gave us. You know, Andrew always says, I don't know if he's here, he says it's a modest, it's a modest support, and it really went a long way to get us started, to set up foundation, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you everybody.
What we've noticed is usually there is collaboration when there's a crisis in countries. That's when you see politicians and civil society working together. I think this is very strategic and very important actually for the work that each and everyone is doing, and specifically when it comes to the Charter on Governance, Democracy and Elections, the ACTEC in Africa.
No country today really does not subscribe to democracy and democratic governance. And no political party does not subscribe. In fact, we have many political parties that even have democracy and democratic governance in their names, you know. So we really have come from far. But the context of this particular symposium recognizes that whilst these normative instruments do exist at a continental, regional, and even at a country level where we have democratic constitutional frameworks, actual commitment and actual practice is different.
So I'm therefore standing here on behalf of the Secretary General of the ANC, Mr. Fikile Mbalula, who couldn't make it here himself because of the busy schedule of this election season. But we thought that we should find a way to come and share our own thoughts and welcoming regards to all of you today, because we recognize the importance of the conversation for which we have gathered here today. The name of the organization that has invited us is also quite instructive. It's Democracy Works. It is not just a name, but it is a philosophical proposition that we share deeply. The African National Congress believes that democracy works and it has to be preserved as the best institutional and political arrangement to guarantee the prosperity of humanity as a whole.
We have normative frameworks. I won't dwell too much on the global ones, but I think in terms of violence against women, you may want, if you have time, to look at the Commission on the Status of Women. There are agreed conclusions there and resolutions that really discourage forms of violence against women in the electoral space. When we look at our normative frameworks, I think our global guide is the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination, where we draw our guidance on quotas or temporary special measures, but also really calling on country or member states to eliminate discrimination against women. We've also had a declaration on the elimination of violence against women at the global level, and all of us do know of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly goal number 5. Beijing also really is instructive for us, outlining 12 strategic objectives around women in power and decision making. But coming to our region, looking at the SADC region, the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development, it is instructive. It does really give us instructions around eliminating all barriers to prevent women from meaningfully participating in all spheres of life.
Government are formed through political parties. So if we can engage and share experience and some sort of information, political parties will be in the know. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. I'm the national campaign director in my party, but I was not aware of the African Charter. So my coming here has strengthened my knowledge on the Charter and how important is the Charter. And as a political party, when I go back home, I'll be able to discuss with the National Executive Committee and also to make sure that as a political party, we have to be on top of issues.
I think to move beyond the rhetoric, I think we now need to make sure that we are all rooted in data. I would encourage all the actors to make use of data in guiding them in coming up with solutions to address issues to do with democracy and elections. What does the data say on a number of issues to do with elections and democracy? And then we can be able to channel our resources and efforts in addressing those issues so that we can be able to move from rhetoric. So we need to make sure that our efforts are grounded in empirical evidence in order to be able to attain some gains.
It's very paramount that we, especially the SADC countries, that they get together from time to time to share their experiences from the different countries. As we know, we share a lot as Africans. So it's important from my side, as from the IFP, to benchmark how other countries are doing in terms of democracy, so that we, at the end of the day, people can see the fruits of democracy.
I think for CSOs across the region, there is need, firstly, for them to familiarize themselves with the agenda of their respective nations or the respective member states of the regional institutions or regional economic communities such as SADC. Firstly, learn to understand why an institution like that exists, how it came into existence, and then find within your programming as a CSO ways in which your work complements or feeds into the agenda of SADC, for example, where we're talking regional integration. When we look at the AU as the one now at continental level, there is need from grassroots level all the way up to national, regional, and continental for CSOs to complement this work, for there to be a harmonious approach to the way in which we carry out our different mandates.
So for me, I see one among the major things that we have to come up with is to ensure that we try to keep on advocating to ensure that these member states are signing, but also are ratifying these charters and normative framework that are here to ensure that we promote the democratic governance in our countries.
We would like this kind of a symposium to be escalated to the ground so that people do understand what we are looking for, so that for the future we are able to manage our elections and democratic principles that are nurturing our nations.
We are very much strong in ensuring we are talking about inclusive democracies, the role of women, young people, people with disabilities and other marginalized groups. These are very important areas of Democracy Works Foundation. At the end of the day, we really seek to promote and advance what we call more inclusive, more equitable, more consensus-oriented, climate-sensitive governance in the region. Democracy essentially means the system that puts the person at the center. It's the system that seeks to ensure that when we are talking about governing, we are talking about governing based on the trust. The people give mandate to those people that are governing them, in which case we are talking about really a system of government that must always seek to respond to the aspirations of the people. So why does it matter? Because people matter. And because people matter, because people have rights, people need to determine their own destiny in terms of how they want to be governed. But also people need to hold accountable those that govern them. And those that govern must deliver on their mandate. So without a democratic setup, then of course you have a situation where those that govern are responsible and accountable to no one. And that's not what we want to see in the region. And that's why democracy matters.
Democracy works if only we all play our part. Every vote cast, every knowledge that is shared, every dialogue heard, and every effort made for inclusion and accountability contributes to the resilience of democracy.